Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Leadership Success Navigator webinar series. This is webinar 2. That is number 2 out of 4 total. Again, welcome. Good to have everyone on the line. My name is David Liddell. I'm going to be your facilitator for today, and we have about 1 hour. And while I say 1 hour, because we started just a minute or two after 2 o'clock Eastern time, and we do stick to the 1 hour so people can get on the phone, get this done, and then move on to other important things. So with that, I'm just going to do a quick intro of our organization. For those of you who don't know us, we're a leadership development company, and we perform our services in 3 areas: executive coaching, strategic planning, and leadership development training. This webinar series came out of the leadership development training, and it is, as everyone knows, it is no charge. So I encourage you to have your associates, your friends, or colleagues join us at any point in time. And the purpose is to give everyone on the line some tools, techniques, skills, and tips that they can take away and use in their day-to-day work life. So with that, I'm going to continue on. This is really designed for people in a leadership position or anybody who is aspiring to be in a leadership position. And it came out of interviews and surveys and one-on-one conversations with my customers. I've been doing this for about 14 years now. We're going on our 15th year. And the question is, how can I jumpstart my leadership growth? How can I do that? What's the best way? What's the fastest? And we all know there's no fast way to grow professionally. It takes time, it takes experience. But I assembled this leadership series, this webinar series, to help drive that forward. I consider it to be a formula that I feel is a fundamental foundation for success. So with that, I'm going to let you know how this works. Like I said, it's going to be 60 minutes. This is 2 out of 4. There's going to be 2 more coming up, one next month and one in December. So that will round out the series. And we're going to do it again next year, but we're going to change things up a little bit. So in January, we'll be starting a whole new series. For the first 45 minutes, I'm going to keep everyone on mute. Actually, everyone's on mute for the entire series, so we don't get a lot of background noise. But you do have the option of typing in any questions, which I will address at the very end. So if you have questions that are specific to your situation and you'd like to share and share that question, please feel free to type it in, and we'll have that read out. If it's a question that is a little more personal in nature and you'd like to take it offline, you can also contact me. I'll provide my information at the end, and I'm always happy to answer these questions. So with that, let's get started. And hopefully everyone has downloaded the worksheet. Very important, because this is meant to be an interactive webinar. Now, the fact that I have everyone on mute makes it tough to interact verbally, but you can interact using the worksheet, because I'm going to ask questions as I introduce concepts and points and tips. I would like you to see if you can apply it to your situation, your personal situation. So this is the series itself. Last month, we started with a framework for leadership success, which is everything around how you should be thinking as a leader. Today, we're going to be talking about what does success look like. So why do you exist, and what do you want to achieve? And it's not you personally, why do you exist? So what is your business unit? What is the area of your business exist? What is the purpose? What's the value? Next month, we're going to talk about how you actually navigate your way to success. If you can picture the success, great, but how do you get there? And then finally, pulling it all together. How do you put this together in a cohesive plan that everybody can get behind? And that's the part about making it happen. The benefits to you, and this is everyone's individual. You get out of this what you'll put into it, but we're going to try to apply it to your real world. It will apply to your professional experience, and it's designed to drive you as a leader forward to help yourself and, of course, your business success. So there are 5 points we're going to cover today, and the 5 points relate directly back to the worksheet. So again, hopefully you have that, and it was emailed to you, or the link was emailed to you today and probably another time before, so you should have it. But the first point is understanding the true value provided by your company. The second one is making sure you and your team are aligned to that value, very critical, because that answers the question, why do I do what I do? And then, of course, you have to establish very specific outcomes and objectives that go with how do you get there. So what does success look like? And then we want clear measures of success. A lot of people in organizations work very, very hard, sometimes out of alignment with what success looks like. So item D here is critical. And then the last point is creating a culture of accountability. And I didn't say hold people accountable purposely, and I'll share that later on. So let's hit the first point. It's a big piece of understanding how to drive your business forward. And I want you for a moment to think about your company as a whole, recognizing what is your business value. So if you think about where your business plays, it plays in the marketplace. You have an industry, you have customers, you have competition. And you don't have a lot of control over the marketplace. The marketplace does what it does. Your job is to do the best you can to compete and succeed in your marketplace. But the organization does need a strategy. Things like mission, vision, values. You have to have goals and objectives. You have to know where you're going, and you have to know how you compete in the market. Some companies actually don't know how they compete. They just compete. Sometimes they do well without even trying to do well, but that can be for different reasons. But essentially, you need a clear direction, and you have to understand why you're doing what you're doing. To be able to deliver on your strategy, you need people and process. Now, I'm simplifying that a little bit, but we talk about delivering that value. Well, you need the value stream, starting with things like marketing and PR and sales, and running all the way through to delivering your product and or service or combination thereof, which has to do with departments like could be engineering, it could be planning, it could be anything related to producing product or delivering service. So we'll certainly touch on that. And of course, with that, if you have an efficient and effective value stream, and that's all the people and all the processes that deliver that, you're going to deliver value to your customer. Now, what's really important with all this, you'll see I've got 2 points on the screen here. Value is not determined by you, it's actually determined by your customer. So it's everything that they receive. Do they see the value? Do they recognize the value? And if anyone on the phone is in a sales capacity, the ability to sell has a lot to do with how well you're demonstrating the value. But value is critical, provided, and it only works well if your customer understands the value. Now, I'm using customer generically here. I know I have many different people on the phone from different industries, and I'm using a customer very generically in terms of those people who receive value from what you provide. So I'm going to give you a few examples what value really is. So if we think about things like cars, and these are examples, but cars, healthcare insurance, business software, these are all industries, or these are businesses that revolve around these sorts of industries. Everybody can buy a car, but everyone buys a car for a different reason. And you can see I've listed things like luxury and excitement and transportation. Well, if you buy a Corvette or if you buy a Prius, you're buying a car, but the value you receive is very different. Same thing with health insurance. What are people looking for? Business software could be something around efficiency or innovation. But you have to think about the product and or service, or like I say, combination thereof. That's just the means to deliver the value. And that value is in the eye of the beholder, who is, in this case, the person receiving these services or product from your organization. Now, you contribute to this, but I'm keeping you at a high level for a minute. So what I'd like you to do is look at the worksheet. If you could get your hands on the worksheet, and item A says understanding the true value provided by your customer. So what I'd like you to do is take a moment. I'll give you a few seconds here to do this, to list 2 unique end result benefits that your customer receives from your company or your company's product or service. And again, remember, how do they see it? What is the value they get? How does it help their business or their situation? So I'll give you about 30 seconds. Go ahead. About 10 seconds. Good. So now you should have an understanding of the value provided by your company. The next thing you've got to do is then connect yourself to that value. and this is for any employee in your company. It could be you, it could be somebody who works for you, it could be your boss. It's imperative to understand how your efforts, your contribution, your discretionary effort is actually contributing to the organization. And most people just want to know, am I doing a good job? Does my contribution matter? So let's go to the next point here. Now this is a bit of a schematic, but I think you'll understand what I'm trying to do here in just a moment. We talk about delivering value. For anybody that's in a manufacturing capacity, you'll hear about value stream and lean manufacturing. It's really all about just taking the inefficiencies out of what you do. But let's look at a typical scenario. And this example actually comes from an engineering company. So their job is to provide engineering services. So you'll understand where I'm coming from here. But you can see at the very top, you have to have executive leadership. This is the team of people that provides direction and tells the rest of the organization where you're headed, what you need to achieve, and why it is important to do what you're doing. You also need business and administrative support, things like human resources and accounting, or legal, any part of the organization that supports delivering value to the customer. Now, along here, you'll see I have these silos. Everyone hears about silos in organizations. Silos this is where deep domain expertise resides. So in this particular example, sales and marketing, you have sales and marketing experts. In the engineering silo, you have people that are engineers or people that understand the value of engineering. And then operations is all about delivering either the product or service. And I'm listening to this way because this is what I encourage everybody in an organization is to understand, how do we truly deliver value to the customer? And that arrow that cuts across those silos is how you do it. Now, everybody knows between departments or between silos, the challenges relate to collaboration issues or lacking cohesiveness in priorities. And this is normal because it always comes down to the people. So I'm always trying to get individuals and organizations to figure out, where do I fit in all this? Where do I fit into this big maze of an organization that we have? And I don't like to look at org charts because org charts doesn't tell the entire picture as it relates to value and delivery of value. So let's look at a couple different examples of what I mean by where do you fit and what's the value you provide. So I have an arrow here from marketing to marketing to sales. And the marketing department, in this particular example, provides value to sales through generating a consistent flow of sales leads. So in this case, you can see sales is a customer of marketing. We all of us have internal customers, and it's very important to recognize what value do we provide, and are we doing a good job of providing the value to our internal customers? So this is just one example. I'm sure in this case, the marketing department does more than that, but this is a very specific example. Let's try another one. This is the project support, the engineering group that provides project support to the project management organization. And in this particular example, with an engineering company providing engineering services, if you don't get the engineering right, you're going to put projects at risk. So what this does, this mitigates this particular group or individual in the marketing department, mitigates risk on delivering projects to their customers. So you could do this. I could cite hundreds and hundreds of examples here, but what I'd like to do next for you is to encourage you to take your worksheet again. This is item B in your list, and I'd like you to think about an internal customer that you have in your organization. We all have external customers because your company has external customers, but think specifically about internal customers and what is the end result benefit that they receive from your team. Now, I say team because you might be part of a team, you might be leading a team, and if it's just you can relate it to yourself, but this will connect you to the value of the organization. So I'll give you about 30, 40 seconds. Give it a try, and again, pick one internal customer and list an end result benefit or benefits that they receive from you or your team. Go ahead. about 10 seconds. Okay, good. Hopefully you have a few benefits down there. And as you look at those benefits that you're assuming your internal customers receive, and I'm assuming they do, here's a test for you. You can try this on your own. Ask them how well you're doing. And I do this, I've done this exercise in a more intensive manner in some of my clients' organizations. You'll be very surprised as to what you hear. Sometimes you might be pleasantly surprised, or sometimes not. And there's always a good question, how are we doing? Are we doing a good job of delivering the value that we need to deliver or that we've actually promised? Now, delivering your value first starts with understanding it, that we've done here, but we also have to figure out how is it that we connect that value to some pragmatic goals, objectives, and specific outcomes. So what we have to do here, and I've switched slides as you can see, we have to think about defining objectives and desired outcomes for your functional area, for yourself even. And you can apply this to yourself as an individual or to your team or department, whatever the case might be. But let's do this through the example I've got here. If you think about specific outcomes or objectives for your organization, and it's all about adapting and improving your business. And actually, before I continue on, let me just talk about adapting and improving. If you're not growing your business, if you're not adapting your business, and if you're not improving your business, it can be very dangerous. And what I mean by that is the market around you, the marketplace, the economy is consistently or constantly changing and consistently changing. It's your responsibility to make sure that you're adapting effectively, staying agile, and looking at how can we do it better. I guarantee your competitors are thinking that way. And what you want to do is make sure that you have a very sound organization that's adapting well to its environment. And it's not consistently adapting every day, but you have to think about what's happening in the future. What do we anticipate happening in the future, and what do we have to do to change to improve? So this example, this is an actual real example that I pulled. I've made it a little generic, but you'll get the idea. So we need to increase productivity and customer response time. Great, okay. That's obviously came from feedback from the customer saying, well, we're not getting the response that we need. And the organization identified the challenge. The gap analysis came back to say, well, the problem is we don't have a well-defined business process. We've always done it this way, it's always worked, but now we're recognizing that it's not keeping up with our customers' demands. So the improvement is we will analyze our process, identify the variances, and make the enhancements or the improvements. And that is an objective tied back to outcomes, which is measured by the customer, or in this particular case, productivity measures. So I want you to think about your business in terms of how do we grow from here? How do we improve? How do we stay responsive and not reactive to what's going on in our business environment? And part of it starts with what we talked about earlier, making sure you understand the value, make sure you're connected to that value and know how to deliver it. And then you're making, in this case, on this slide, making improvements. Now there's one other thing before we go to the worksheet that I want you to think about. There are different aspects of your business. If anyone on the phone is familiar with the balanced scorecard, and you may be, it's a pretty simple concept. There are four key elements. And one of them is customer satisfaction. Another one, as are listed here, is the workplace culture. That's the experience that your employees have. The operational efficiency has everything to do with how well you can deliver that value. And then, of course, the financial performance is how well you're doing financially. Now, what's really important to understand is that money, dollars, revenue, which every organization needs, is not the reason why you're in business. That is only the result of how well you do in your business, but it's still an important part. Most companies do a great job of understanding their financial performance because they have to. You need money to survive. All organizations do. We all do as individuals. We all have bills to pay. But you can't ignore any of these when you're thinking about how do I improve and adapt my business? Let's go to item C on the worksheet. And I want you to think about your business, how well you're delivering the value. And so you can think about yourself, you can think about your team, you can think about how well you interact or relate to other parts of the organization. That's the internal customer piece. And I'd like you to think about different aspects of your business. And that can be people, that can be process, that can be systems, that can be culture, anything at all. What needs to improve? Now, I don't want you to write down 7 things. I'd like you to list maybe 1 or 2. And then you can take these 1 or 2 things and actually start working on it. Give it a try. I'll give you about 30 or 40 seconds. Go ahead. All right, so hopefully you have a few areas that you can work on, and if these are meaningful to you, and hopefully they are, and they continue to improve the value, your ability to deliver value, something you can think about here is how do you connect the rest of your employees, your team, and get others around, rallied around these improvements so that you do improve the performance of your organization. Now, the next item I want to talk about is connecting your employees. And so that's a segue from where I just left off here. You've got to connect your employees to the success of the organization. Now, in this case, I'm talking about success measures. Back in webinar number 1, we talked about defining measures of success. And these measures of success are very similar to, they actually come from the same areas of the balanced scorecard. Are your customers happy? Are your employees happy? Are you performing well in measures of efficiency? It could be revenue related or something to do with profit or budgeting. Are you doing well? I mean, every organization has departments and budgets. Are you meeting your budgetary goals, those sorts of things? So we talked about that last time, but now we have to think about, well, great. How do I connect my people to that? How do I connect people in the organization? If you think about every individual who reports to you and works around you, and including yourself, if you didn't have a clear picture of how to measure your own personal success, it's very difficult to know how well you're doing. Working hard and being successful don't necessarily go together. Now, you might see some people in your organization that work very, very hard, but you don't see the success. Now, in most cases, if people are connected to the business, they understand why they're doing what they're doing, and they know how to measure their success, even if it's subjective, then they can get a clear picture for themselves. How am I doing? Am I doing well? And then there's no surprises along the way. So this needs to be carried down to every employee. The organization, your company as a whole, has very specific success measures that it looks at. Some of them are financial, some of them are efficiency oriented. That can be carried down to the department or the team level. So you, if you're a manager, at the manager level, you're responsible, but then you've got to connect your employees to that as well. And this is where one of the biggest disconnects occurs, is that we don't translate goals, objectives, but specifically key measures of success all the way down through to the employee. And the more effectively you can do that, the more effectively you connect the employee to what is most important in the business at the given time. It also tells the employee how to use their discretionary effort. I'm hopeful that as managers, people on the phone, you don't hover over your employees. I know you don't have the time, and I know you don't want to do it. But sometimes we look at our employees and wonder why they do the things they do. Why are they making the decisions that they do? And oftentimes because they don't understand the context of what they're doing or why they're doing it necessarily. So today I'm trying to take it from the highest level all the way down to the employee and connecting them to what is most important. So if you were on the webinar 1 call, you should have a list of success measures. Even if you weren't on the first call, one, you can go back and listen to it because it has been recorded. It is on the website. But even if you don't, I want you to think about what are the things that you measure in your organization, and I mean it could be a team, small team, large team, department, and ask yourself, are your employees well connected to those key measures? Can they connect themselves to it? Worksheet item D, what I'd like you to do is ask yourself the question and jot down maybe 1 or 2 things here. What can you do to become more effective at setting expectations for your employees? And what I mean by expectations are very specific expectations, whether it's job-related, task-related, anything that will tell an individual how they can be successful at what they're doing, meaning what does success look like? I'll give you about 30 seconds or so, and go. All right, great. So hopefully we have something here that will give you a clear picture of what success looks like for each of the people on your team. And the final item here revolves around accountability. How do you hold people accountable? And what I always tell people is, look, don't worry about holding them accountable. If you create a culture of accountability, people hold themselves accountable. And this doesn't apply to 100% of the population, because you do have some people that always need the kick in the pants to get moving. But most people come to work and are motivated to do well, whatever their personal reasons are. And there's a fundamental approach that will get you there every time. So I want you to think about these 5 questions. And I also have a little rule of thumb, which I'm going to share with you in a minute. But first question is, does each employee know what it means to be successful? And that relates to the previous slide. Do they? Do they really understand? Do they understand every aspect of their job? Do they understand all the boundary conditions in terms of timeliness and expectations and any non-negotiables? I mean, do they really have a clear sense of what it means to be successful in their role? Second, are you monitoring their performance? When I say monitoring, it doesn't mean micromanaging. There's a clear difference in what I'm getting at here. Monitoring performance is understanding what people need to help them reach their full potential. And if you allow certain people too much room, they flounder. If you smother certain people, they will buck on you. They will want to leave the organization. You have to find the right balance for each person to understand what monitoring performance really means. Now, if there is an issue, if there is a problem, do you know why? And it's very important to understand, if you do have a problem, why is it that you have a problem? If you don't know why, that means you're not in touch. You're not in touch with your employee. Number 4 is you've got to hold difficult conversations. If you're not consistent and timely with providing feedback to individuals in terms of their performance, what you're doing is you're setting the tone that it's okay to not perform well. Now, conversely, if they're doing well, it's always a good idea to share positive feedback. And then you have to have follow-up. If there are performance improvement plans, you need to follow up. Having a plan and not following up is certainly an issue. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to share a rule of thumb with you to understand if someone's not performing at the level they should, why not? And these are 4 things that I want you to consider. First of all, have you done a good job of setting expectation for the individual? Everything I've talked about so far, have you truly done a good job? And so decoding why someone isn't performing at the level they should has everything to do with, it starts with you. It starts with you, the manager, Actually starts at the top of the organization, but it is, you are accountable to your employees to ensure that you have set the right expectation. Does the employee have the skills? This may be a skill that they have to learn, they have to train themselves on or get the help, or perhaps it's something that it's a soft skill that they need some soft skills training. Structurally, do they have does the structure that surrounds them, does it support them? And sometimes, in most cases it does, because the organizations are structured well, but that's not always the case. And then the last one, which you have the least control over but some control, is attitude. And so you have complete control over expectations, skills, and structure. Attitude has everything to do with the attitude of the employee. Do they have what it takes? Now, if someone does have a bad attitude, is it possible to change their attitude? And the answer is absolutely yes, but it's not simple. You have to go after attitude through individuals' beliefs. I'll give you a real simple example. If someone came to work every single day late and nobody said anything, their belief system is it's okay. You have to be clear with individuals to help them understand, do they believe in what your organization believes in? Do they understand the values? Do they follow through on the minimum performance expectations? You can adjust attitude through beliefs, but you have to do it in a respectful fashion. So I've given you a few things here to think about. What I'd like you to do on the worksheet, item E, last item, and then I'm going to wrap up shortly after this. We'll have some questions. I want you to think about usability. So, and let's do this through the filter of an employee in your organization. So select an employee who needs to improve their performance. It could be someone that even needs to build on a strength. Which of the four rule of thumb areas is an indicator of their performance challenge? Think of an employee, write it down, and also give yourself an opportunity to write down what it is that you might need to do to make that change, to improve their performance. Go ahead. Okay, so hopefully you have someone in mind and you've jotted down a few thoughts relative to helping them grow. Remember this, when it comes down to accountability, I'll just repeat myself from earlier, it's creating a culture of accountability. You lead by example whether you want to or not. I mean, that's something that every leader has to understand. Set the tone for the organization. You will then set the tone for what accountability means. And it's not about you, and it's not about the team. It's about the company and delivering the value that you promise to your customers. And you've got to set the tone relative to what that really means. All right, so let's wrap up with, well, we're not going to wrap up entirely yet, but I want to do a summary here to set the stage for the questions. So remember, your company competes in the marketplace. And the marketplace has everything to do with industry, customers, competition, anything that's outside your organization. The strategy provides direction. It's usually set at the end, will include input from others in the organization, but it sets the direction for where an organization is going. And what strategy does at the core, it helps individuals overcome challenges and hurdles and make better decisions, provided it's been shared with the rest of the people in the organization, which is an entirely different story. We talked about the value stream, how you deliver value to your customer. And really, value is all about people and process. Obviously, if there's product involved, that's the output. But when you talk about people and process, it really comes down to the people. You can have miserable process in your organization, meaning it's not well defined, it's not that great, it's difficult. Good people always overcome lousy process. If you don't have good people, you can have the best process in the world. If you don't have good people, it's very difficult. So remember how the value stream works. And then, of course, That's all about delivering value to the customer. Remember, the value is in the eye of the customer. It's how they see it, not how you perceive it. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, you've got to have leadership. That's your leadership. That's leadership from the top to the bottom. And you've got to have a culture that supports delivering that value. And a part of that culture is accountability. But remember, culture is the experience of what it's like to work at your company. You've got to have success measures. The organization, people, teams have to know what it means to be successful. If you were watching a football game without a scoreboard, it's a little meaningless, isn't it? So it's the same thing. People want to know. They want to be able to understand, am I measuring up? Am I doing well? Is our team doing well? And oftentimes it's allowing the team to define what does success look like. It has to connect to the company's success, but as long as it does, it gives everyone a good measuring stick. And then, of course, you've got to improve your business. So the success measures tell you, are we doing well? Do we need to improve? The strategy sets, we need to go in this direction. That will tell you, do we need to improve? So it's a pretty simple model, and this should help you in terms of thinking about outcomes in mind. This will drive your leadership thinking. So with that in mind, I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to switch over to some questions. I've got someone to help me out here. Alan, could you? Hopefully, we've got a few questions there. Could you let me know?
Yeah, we've got one so far from Mike. He asks, as a mid-level manager, what can you do if you don't have a clear understanding of the company's strategy?
Well, the simple answer to that is go ask. In most organizations, although the senior management thinks they're communicating consistently and constantly and pushing the information down to the organization, there are some natural filters. All the information doesn't get down to the organization. If you're one of those people that doesn't understand all aspects of your strategy or those aspects that are really important to you, go ask. Ask your boss. Ask for go and retrieve and get the information you need. I'd like to say, hey, there's this, you can go to this website and get it this way. Well, it's not a bad idea to read your own website if you haven't done that. But there's certainly a lot of questions that relate to your business. Ask your boss strategically oriented questions that will help you make better decisions.
Great, thank you. Also, as a reminder to everyone listening, if you do have a question, there's a question bar there. You can go ahead and enter your questions into the space, and then they'll appear on here, so that way I can have Dave answer your questions for you. We do have a second one. It says, this is from Cassie. She asks, you listed 4 dimensions of the business on one of your slides. How do they relate to each other?
Right. So the dimensions, as I mentioned earlier, those are part of the balanced scorecard, and everybody seems to think that these are independent elements and one doesn't impact the other. Or some people think that. They relate actually quite directly. If you think about how well you deliver value, each one of those dimensions will affect the other. And there is everyone's probably heard of the Gallup organization. They do a lot of political polls, but they do a lot of business surveying as well. And they did a survey a number of years ago, and they repeat it every once in a while, but it has everything to do with customer retention. And what they did is it related employee engagement to customer retention. So how well are employees engaged in the company had a direct relation to how well they actually retained their customers. And if you think about those 4 elements, one of them is customer satisfaction, one of them is culture, so that's the culture within your organization, your operational performance or operational efficiency, and then financial performance. I have many examples of organizations that have very satisfied customers and very good financials. However, their employees aren't happy. And after digging deep into the organization, and I didn't have to go that deep, what we realized going through the process was that the processes, the systems, the structure of the organization caused a tremendous amount of stress, rework, and frustration for the employees. And if you think about if you have unhappy employees, at some point, that's going to impact your customers, meaning they may not get the value or the service they deserve, which could impact your financials. And any one of those can affect the other, and you could have a nasty spiral rippling effect to the organization. So what I promote and suggest highly is don't ignore any of the four, because they all relate together to produce the value that you need to the customer. And if the customer's happy, then the organization essentially does well, but you can't ignore any part because there's always going to be some sort of impact otherwise.
Thank you. We have one from Ted. He asks, first he compliments you and says, I really like the theme of this webinar, focusing on outcomes. And then his question is, what is the best way to handle it when everyone has a different idea of outcomes?
Yeah, well, I think that's a good question. When everyone has a different, hopefully everybody doesn't have a different idea of outcomes, but I'll take the question at face value. Outcomes has a lot to do with what, if you think about outcome for the customer, if you think about outcome for the business, a big way or a big piece of that is you've got to define what outcomes mean. Do people really understand it? I think that's part of this is communication. As I mentioned, the organization is, the strategy is established at the top, but the strategy or the direction or the key pieces of that are not well communicated down to the organization, so people can make those, so they can make decisions and stay connected. So the first thing that has to happen is you've got to be, everyone's got to be on the same page with what an outcome is, and an outcome for an organization could be, well, we have to generate a certain amount of revenue so we can pay our employees. An outcome might be we have to deliver this type of value to our customer. The outcome is perceived based on based on the entity. Is it a customer? Is it an employee? Is it the organization as a whole? And that's where outcomes have to be well defined at the top, and then that has to cascade down through the organization from layer to layer. And it has to be communicated. And a great way to communicate in understanding outcomes is to discuss it, get input from the employees in the organization so they can understand what it means, because telling employees, too much telling does not necessarily produce the results that you want. So you've got to align people to that value and to what is most important. So if you look at the slide that I have up here, if you think about success measures, those are outcomes. Business value, outcomes. Improving your business will improve outcomes. And of course, the leadership establishes the environment to do that. So the question is, the bottom line is it has to be communicated. There's got to be feedback. You've got to get buy-in and consensus if you're going to have a chance of getting people aligned with what outcomes are all about. And of course, I started with you got to define what outcomes are.
Okay, it looks like we have one last question here. From Amanda, she asks, what do you feel is the biggest challenge to employees reaching their full potential?
I'm asked that question quite often, and I would say that it is, and I'm going to say unfortunately, it's managers. It's the leaders in the organization. And this is not a criticism. This is oftentimes a lack of understanding or a lack of awareness of your surroundings. Leaders at all levels, on the whole, okay, I'm not pinpointing any particular individual, on the whole, don't do as good a job at setting expectations as they think. And going back to my rule of thumb here, I can go back to this slide. That very first one, expectations, under the problem assessment rule of thumb, is the managers, the organization has not done an effective job of setting expectations, meaning what do I need to achieve and what does success look like? That is by far, out of all my experiences dealing with organizations, different size organizations, I don't care what size, whether you're a 10,000 person company or a 100-person company, it's always the same thing. And those organizations that actually focus on setting expectations effectively, consistently, and following through and ensuring that the expectations are being met the right way those are the ones that tend to achieve and succeed year over year over year. So by far, for me, that's got to be the biggest hurdle.
Great.
So let me go forward here. Alan, you said that was the last question?
Oh, yeah, last question there.
Okay. Well, we certainly have a few more minutes. So let me just, I'll just take a minute or two here, and we'll get you guys out of here early today. Sometimes we'll have more questions. Don't forget, we have the next webinar coming up next month. It's November 20th, and that's going to take it to the next level of this program. If you would attend all 4, that's where you're going to get the most benefit. And what I'd like everybody to do, on your worksheet, you have well-defined answers for yourself. This is about you. What can you take from the worksheet that you can apply right after this call today? And anybody who takes the time and invests back in themselves, and now you've taken approximately an hour out of your busy day to participate in this, I encourage you to take something out of it. Apply something back, and it's not extra, it's something that you do every day. Make an adjustment, make an improvement for yourself. Every incremental improvement, and it's one person at a time, one skill at a time, one behavior at a time, adds value to who you are, adds to the value of your team, to the organization. And if you can influence other people around you to do the same thing, you'll have a massive, massive impact. So that's what I'd like everyone to do today. Don't forget, like I said, November 20th is webinar number 3, and webinar 3 is how will you navigate your way. We've established outcomes today. I talked an awful lot about outcomes. How do you get there? So that's what we're going to talk about next. Also, we're going to this has been recorded, so we're going to put this up on the website. We'll have the audio, a downloadable audio available. Some people like to listen to this in their car from their phone. We also will have the worksheet and the slides available to you if you want to share this with others. And so you'll be certainly on the list of people we're going to reach out to make sure you attend the next one. But feel free to pass this along. We do this at no charge. This is a give back to our community. We feel it's imperative to increase core leadership capability in companies. It's one of the biggest competitive differentiators in this world market. We have many organizations around the world that need help, and this is just our small part in making it happen. Was there anything else, Alan? Anything I missed?
No, I think that's everything. Like you said, if you want to get a hold of Dave Liddell, his contact information is there on the screen. And for more information, you can go to www.SKYE-solutions.com. And like you said, we'll be sending out an email as well with more information in the next couple of days. Usually we get the video and audio up within the next 24 to 48 hours.
Excellent. Thank you, Alan. Really appreciate it. Everybody on the phone, any questions at all, feel free to email, send me an email, or you can reach out at the phone number listed on the screen, and I'll be happy to take your call. I'm going to be in the office the rest of the afternoon, so let me know if there's anything I can help you with. And Alan, thanks for your help today.